Hey there, and welcome back to the American Accent Podcast. Whether you're tuning in from your morning commute, your gym session, or just relaxing on the couch, I am so glad you pressed play today. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are so happy to have you here. This podcast is your home base for everything related to American pronunciation, rhythm, and the little quirks of spoken English that make native speakers sound, well, native. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back, my friend. You already know the drill. Grab a coffee, get comfortable, and get ready to train your ear and your mouth for some real, natural American English. Now, today's episode is a special one, because right now, the whole world has its eyes on the United States. That's right. The FIFA World Cup is happening right here in America, and millions of fans across the globe are following every single match, every goal, every dramatic penalty kick. It's an incredible moment of global unity where football, or as we say here, soccer, brings people together across languages, cultures, and accents. So we thought, what better time than now to dive into sports terminology? Specifically, how Americans talk about soccer differently than the rest of the world. Because here's the thing, even though it's the same sport, the same rules, the same beautiful game, the vocabulary that comes out of an American commentator's mouth can sound almost like a different language compared to what you'd hear on a British or international broadcast. So grab your notebook because today we're breaking down American sports English, how to say it, how to pronounce it, and why Americans talk about soccer the way they do. Let's get into it. Why does American soccer vocabulary sound so different? Before we jump into specific words, let's talk about why this happens. In the United States, sports culture is dominated by American football, basketball, and baseball. These sports have shaped the way Americans talk about competition in general. So when soccer entered the American sports conversation, it naturally absorbed vocabulary from those other sports. It's kind of like how immigrants bring their language into a new country, and over time, that language blends with the local dialect. The same thing happened with sports terminology. So keep that in mind as we go through today's list. Almost every American variation has its roots in baseball, basketball, or American football. Let's start with the scoreboard, because this is probably the most noticeable difference for English learners. If a team wins 1-0 here in the US, you'll hear commentators say 1-0 or 1-0. Listen to how natural that sounds. The final score was 1-0. Very casual, very American. But if you're watching an international broadcast, you'll hear 1-0 instead. That word nil, spelled N-I-L, is used almost everywhere outside the United States to mean zero in a sports context. Now here's a fun pronunciation tip. The word nil is short and clipped, nil. Say it with me. Nil, 1-0. Compare that to the American zero, zero, which has two syllables and a softer rhythm. 0, 1-0. And when a game ends with no goals at all, Americans call that a 0-0 tie. Notice that word tie. Americans love using tie for a game that ends in an even score. Internationally, that same game would be called a 0-0 draw. Say both out loud with me. 0-0 tie, 0-0 draw. Feel the difference in mouth movement? Tie ends with your tongue relaxed, almost like you're smiling. Draw pulls your lips forward slightly, almost like you're saying, ah. Next, let's talk about defense. When a team doesn't allow any goals, Americans borrow a word straight from baseball, shutout. You'll hear commentators say, the goalkeeper recorded a shutout tonight. That word, shutout, is a compound word shut plus out, And in fast American speech, it often blends together like this. Shoo to. Try saying it quickly. Shut out. Shut out. Internationally, that same achievement is called a clean sheet. As in, the keeper kept a clean sheet. Two very different images. Americans think of shutting the door on the other team, while the rest of the world imagines a literal clean piece of paper with no marks on it. In this section, let's talk about extra playing time. When a big elimination match is tied after 90 minutes, Americans call the additional playing period overtime. Again, straight from American football and basketball vocabulary, you'll hear, "This match is heading to overtime." Globally, that same period is called extra time. And when the match is still tied after that, Americans might just say PKS, short for penalty kicks, while international commentary usually says penalty shootout. Now let's step onto the actual playing surface, literally. In American English, the grassy area where the match is played is almost always called the field. Simple, short, direct, a file D. The players are warming up on the field. But internationally, it's called the pitch. Pitz. Same meaning, totally different word. If you're watching a British commentator, you'll hear, "What a beautiful pitch this is today." And the lines running along the sides of that field? In America, we call them sidelines. Internationally, they're called touchlines. Small difference, but if you're trying to sound authentically American, sidelines is your word. Now let's talk gear. What do players wear? In the US, we say uniform or jersey. Both are common. Did you see the new jersey the national team is wearing this year? Internationally, the same clothing item is called a kit or a shirt. So, a British fan might say, "I bought the new kit," while an American fan says, "I bought the new jersey." And what about the shoes? In America, always, without exception. Cleats. Cleats? He needs new cleats before the season starts. Internationally, boots, as in, he's breaking in his new boots. Interesting how the American version focuses on the actual spikes on the bottom of the shoe, while the international version treats the whole shoe like a boot. Now let's move into some in-game vocabulary. The words you'll hear used to describe actual plays and actions during the match. When a shot is heading toward the goal, but it might go wide or it might be saved, Americans often say the shot was on frame. As in, that shot was on frame, forcing a great save from the keeper. Internationally, you'll hear on target instead. Same meaning, the shot was aimed correctly toward the goal, but different phrasing. Now here's a fun one, a small grammar quirk that trips up a lot of English learners, the word offside. In America, we almost always add an S, offsides, as in, that was offsides, the referee should have called it. But officially and internationally, the rule is called offside, no S singular. That was clearly offside. This is one of those interesting cases where American English adds a plural sound even though grammatically it doesn't need to be there. It's very similar to how some Americans say anyways instead of anyway, or towards instead of toward. A small stylistic habit, but very noticeable if you're listening carefully. And what happens when a player receives a red card and has to leave the game? In the US, inspired again by baseball and basketball, you'll often hear ejected or thrown out of the game. As in, he was ejected in the second half after that reckless tackle. Internationally, the standard phrase is sent off. As in, he was sent off for a second yellow card. Now, here's something that trips up even advanced English learners because it's not really about vocabulary. It's about grammar. In American English, team names are treated as singular collective nouns. So you'll hear something like, Paris Saint-Germain is playing really well tonight. Notice that little verb, is, not are. But in international English, especially British English, teams are treated as plural. So the same sentence becomes, Manchester United are looking sharp tonight. This is a subtle but very important grammar rule if you're trying to sound authentically American versus authentically British. Americans say, the team is winning. British speakers often say, the team are winning. And one more small but noticeable difference, prepositions. If an American is talking about which club a player belongs to, they'll say the player is on a team. He's on Real Madrid now, but internationally, you'll hear he's at Real Madrid using the preposition at instead of on. So, there you have it, for this a full breakdown of how American English handles soccer, or should we say, football, vocabulary differently than the rest of the world. Let's do a quick recap together, and I want you to say these out loud with me, practicing that natural American pronunciation. 1-0, shutout, overtime, field, sidelines, jersey, cleats, on frame, offsides, ejected. The team is playing well. Great job, however you found today's episode, whether it was through the World Cup buzz or just your love of learning English. I want to say thank you so much for spending this time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing this podcast with a friend who's also learning English. It genuinely helps us reach more learners just like you. Until next time, keep practicing, keep listening, and keep speaking with confidence. This has been the American Accent Podcast. See you in the next episode.